Okay, so this question is, what if I don't experience God? What does that mean? And it doesn't mean anything. And can you experience God? In some churches, this is a very, very big question, and you will be treated just a little bit less equal if you don't experience the presence of God or the person of God in ways that other people do. In theological traditions, sometimes this has worked out in a thing called glossolalia, or the speaking in tongues. And if you don't get that gift, as it's called, then it literally, for some traditions, calls your very salvation into question. And it is wondered by the people in the church if you're even really saved. Well, you can imagine what that does in terms of creating a hierarchy of second-class citizens and all that. So what do we do with that? I think our experience of God in terms of a tangible way is heavily based on personality type, how you see the world, how you experience other things. I think there are some people that have regular experiences of the presence and spirit of God, and they're even tangible. It's a sense, it's a feeling of a presence of God that is otherworldly, that's different than what's going on in normal, scientific, everyday kind of living. And then there are people who never experience that. I think the problem is when we elevate that as something so sought after or so important that it in and of itself becomes an idol. I think some of our worship practices that we do in American Christianity are in danger of doing just that. And we create services that take people to such a heightened sense of emotion, and in ways that in other parts of their lives they do not. And sometimes that's exactly how God is going to work with that. But sometimes I wonder if we are creating, I don't know, the wrong experience, and our focus is on this buzz rather than on something that is much deeper. The experience of God that I pursue, that I think is where it's at, has more to do with God working in the deepest interior spaces of my life to speak to me about who I need to become, how I can become more and more like the image of God that I am in, how I can become more my true self, how I can live my life in ways that are going to allow my whole life to love God and love others like Jesus loved the world. I think that's where it's at. That happens in quiet. That happens by trying to be conscious, truly deeply conscious in my life, my living, and how I organize my life. And God shows up in those spaces. God frees things up in my consciousness and my understanding of things. Those are powerful moments that I'm not sure would happen apart from the presence of God. I don't think they would. And God shows up in those moments. Now, I'm one of those that I have pretty regular experiences of the tangible presence of God. And I've mentioned that to some folk over time, and I'm not sure I should have even said anything, because I think it, even though I don't want it to, that's not the point for me. That's not what it's about. That's not my pursuit, that tangible thing. It's a nice little nod from God. That's cool. I mean, that's neat. It's the Spirit of God. I'm sure of that. But I'm afraid that, even when I talk about it, it sets up like, oh, that should be the goal. Or if I don't have that, what does that say about me? And it says nothing about you. It doesn't say anything about me either. For whatever reason, the way I'm wired, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, but I also know that's not the point. And speaking in tongues is not the point. And other gifts of the Spirit, that's not the point. The point is our union with God, our capacity to walk deeply with God. And sometimes the only ways we see God are in the rearview mirror, that we're in our own moments so deeply that we can't even see God working in our midst at all. We may even shout out that there is no God. And yet, sometimes very quickly in the rearview mirror, we're able to look back and say, wow, I didn't even know it, but God was there. Or we look deep into our rearview mirror and we say, it is clear to me that something else was in the mix here, and I was able to get through that beyond myself, or I was able to articulate that, or I was able to say that, I was able to trust that. And that essence, that thing, is the very presence of God. So I think it's a dance, by the way. I think God is always present. I think God is with you, in you, all the time. And that's true for every single person on the planet. And I think we have the capacity to drill down and be quiet and present with the presence. And I think that changes our life from the inside out and is supposed to manifest itself in fruit of behavior and attitude and our ethic that changes the world for the better. So that's a tough question. If you want to talk about that more, come on by. Hope this helps.